You know, there's a specific psychological phenomenon that happens to the human brain when we enter deep, true isolation. We think of going into the woods as this relaxing Zen-like experience, right? We imagine our stress levels dropping, but biologically, something else happens entirely.
Yeah.
Our cortisol might dip initially, but our hypervigilance actually it spikes. We aren't wired to be alone in the dark.
That's absolutely right, yeah. Evolutionarily speaking, silence in nature doesn't mean peace. It usually means a predator is nearby. When the birds stop singing, you shouldn't be relaxing. You should be running.
And that tension, that biological wire tripping, is exactly where we're living today. We're heading deep into the Northwoods of Wisconsin. We are looking at Mary Kubica's novel, It's Not Her. And we aren't just talking about a murder mystery here. We are talking about the locked room paradox. What happens when the people you are locked in with, your own family, are actually more dangerous than the woods outside?
It's such a fascinating case study because it deals with the disintegration of the social contract. You take a family, you strip away their Wi-Fi, their jobs, their distractions, and you put them in a cabin that smells like pine and damp earth, and you see who they really are. And in Kubica's story, who they are is, well, it's absolutely terrifying.
So for anyone who hasn't read the source material yet, let me just set the stage. We're dealing with a vacation gone wrong in the worst possible way. A family rental cottage, a double homicide, and a teenage girl who has just vanished into thin air. But the way Kubica structures this it's brilliant. She gives us a split perspective. We aren't just following the detective. We are bouncing between Courtney, the aunt who finds the bodies, and Reese, the missing girl, in the days leading up to the crime.
Which lets us do something really interesting in this deep dive. We can look at the anatomy of the crime scene through Courtney's eyes, the aftermath, while simultaneously analyzing the psychology of the victims through Reese's eyes. We get to see the train wreck happening in slow motion, and we get to see the wreckage.
I want to start with that wreckage. I want to start with the morning of the discovery. Because the pacing there is so deceptive, it doesn't start with a scream. It starts with pancakes.
It almost always does, doesn't it? Domestic tragedy rarely announces itself with, ominous music. It usually interrupts breakfast.
Right. So we're in cottage number 7. This is Courtney's rental. It's early morning, maybe 7 a.m. She's at the sink, washing dishes. Her 10-year-old daughter, Cass, and her niece, May, who is also 10, they had a sleepover the night before. It's all sticky syrup, cartoons, giggling girls. Courtney is looking out the window, just admiring the morning, thinking about how wholesome this all is.
And this is so crucial for you to understand. The author is establishing a baseline of safety. Courtney is in mom mode. Her guard is completely down. She is thinking about dish soap and coffee, not murder.
And then the air just shatters. Courtney hears a scream, and she describes it in the text not as a frightened scream, but as a tortured sound. It just cuts right through the open windows. Courtney freezes. She drops a plate into the soapy water, and when she looks out the window toward her brother's cottage up the hill, she sees May.
The visual details here are incredibly important. May isn't just running, she is fleeing. The text describes her arms windmilling, her legs moving faster than her body can handle. She's 10 years old, running down a hill covered in pine needles.
She trips, falls hard, but she doesn't even cry. She just scrambles up and keeps running until she hits Courtney's door. She buries her face in Courtney's stomach, sobbing. And that's when Courtney feels it, the stickiness. She thinks it's syrup from breakfast, but she looks at her hands and it's red.
Now let's pause here. This is a textbook example of what disaster psychologists call normalcy bias. It's a coping mechanism where the brain, when it's faced with traumatic ambiguity, attempts to simulate a normal context.
Oh, like when people hear a gunshot in a crowded mall and their first thought is fireworks or a car backfiring.
Precisely. It takes the human brain approximately 8 to 10 seconds to reprocess visual data that contradicts our survival model. Courtney seeing blood on her niece and thinking she must have scraped her knee on a root isn't her being naive. It is her brain literally trying to protect her from a psychotic break. She is hallucinating order onto chaos because the alternative is just too big to process.
But the reality crashes in pretty fast. Mary isn't talking. She's just shaking. Courtney looks up the hill to cottage number 8, her brother Nolan and sister-in-law Emily's place, and she sees the front door. It's wide open.
Which is a massive deviation from the norm, a huge one.
Yep.
We learned that Emily is neurotic about mosquitoes. She hates bugs. In the Northwoods, you do not leave the door open. That open door is a signal that the rules of the house have been suspended.
So Courtney, still in her robe, she leaves the little girls and walks up the hill. She steps into the cottage. She calls out for Emily. Silence. But there's a smell. She describes it as a strange, comfrey odor.
That's the smell of iron. It's the smell of blood when it's oxidizing in the air. If you've ever smelled a handful of old pennies, it's like that, but thicker, heavier.
She walks toward the screened-in porch. And this moment, this is where the normalcy bias fails completely. She sees the white quilt on the bed. And she sees red. At first, her brain tries to make sense of it. She thinks, who flicked paint all over the bed?
Again, her brain is just scrambling for a safe explanation. Paint is safe. Blood is not.
But then she sees the feet. They're discolored, purpling. And she sees the toenail polish, mauve. And this detail, this is the one that actually made me nauseous reading it. Courtney recognizes the polish because she and Emily had gotten pedicures together just before the trip. It matches her own toes.
It's so visceral, isn't it? It anchors the horror in intimacy. That mauve polish represents a moment of sisterhood, of relaxation just hours before. Seeing it on a corpse forces Courtney to confront the immediacy of the violence. It screams, this person you love was just here.
The description of Emily is haunting. She's been mauled. Her arm is bent at an impossible angle, shoulder jutting out. Her eyes are open and cloudy. And the amount of blood. The text says, no one could lose that amount of blood and survive. This wasn't an accident. This was frenzied.
And look at the location. She's on the porch. This implies she might have been trying to get away, or maybe she was cornered there. It wasn't a death in her sleep. She was awake. She was terrified.
So Courtney is clinging to the doorframe, trying not to pass out. But then she remembers her brother, Nolan. She turns back to the main room. She looks up the stairs, and there he is.
Top of the stairs. Dead.
Lying on his side, blood blooming from his temple draining down his face. His eyes are vacant, staring through the balusters.
So we have two crime scenes, not one. Emily on the porch, Nolan on the stairs. This suggests movement. It suggests a hunt. The killer didn't just walk into a room and shoot them in bed. This violence moved through the house.
And this is where the terror shifts from, grief to survival. Courtney suddenly realizes that the teenagers, Reese, who is 17, and Wyatt, who is 14, are nowhere to be seen. They should be in the house, but the house is silent. Then she hears a creak. Maybe the floorboard settling. Maybe the wind. And Courtney just panics.
It's the Slender Man effect. The idea of the monster in the house, her fight or flight kicks in, and she chooses flight. She abandons the search for the teenagers to run back and save the little girls, Cass and May. And honestly, can you blame her?
Not at all. Not for a second. If you think there is a killer in the house, you don't go checking closets. You grab the survivors and you run.
But that leaves us with a massive question mark, a huge one. Where are Reese and Wyatt? And to understand that, we have to stop looking at the crime scene and start looking at the family. Because the Cranes, they were a disaster waiting to happen long before anyone picked up a weapon.
Oh, absolutely. This wasn't the Brady Bunch on a camping trip. This is a group of people who seem to actively despise each other.
Let's break down the sociology of this family because it's a perfect storm. You have Nolan, the father. He's an MIT graduate, incredibly intelligent, but he was laid off from his tech job 6 months ago.
And he is so bitter about it. He calls the job market the Hunger Games.
That phrase is telling. It really is. It shows he feels hunted. He's suffering from acute status anxiety in a traditional family structure, particularly for a man of his generation. His identity is tied entirely to his utility as a provider. When you sever that, you aren't just taking his paycheck, you are taking his sense of self.
And Emily, his wife, she isn't exactly helping. I mean, she's anxious about money, which is understandable. But she suggests he take a retail job at the Gap. And to Nolan, that's not a solution. That's an insult.
It's a humiliation ritual in his eyes. Totally. So you have a man who feels emasculated and a woman who feels insecure. And then, and this is the kicker, you trap them in a car for 5 hours to drive to a cabin with no internet.
Ugh, that car ride description was painful to read. They're lost. The GPS is glitching. Nolan refuses to ask for directions. Classic stubbornness, but amplified by his fragility. Emily's nagging him about his driving. At one point, Nolan slams on the brakes so hard the kids go flying just to assert control.
It's a sealed vessel of toxicity. By the time they arrive at the cottage, the social contract of that family has already been demolished. They aren't a unit anymore. They are 4 individuals trapped in a cage match.
And the kids are just soaking up all of this radiation. Let's talk about Reese, 17 years old. And she is the definition of the problem child.
Or the identified patient in family therapy terms. The family projects their dysfunction onto her. She's acting out, sure, but there is a reason for it.
Well, Emily had found a text on Reese's phone earlier. It said, I want a KMS.
Kill myself.
Right. And Emily was terrified. She showed it to Courtney. But Courtney's reaction was interesting. She dismissed it. She said, is she serious or just doing it for attention?
And that dismissal is so dangerous. But it also highlights the disconnect. The adults view Reese's pain as, like, performance art. They don't see it as a genuine cry for help.
And Reese feels that rejection.
Hmm.
Completely. The night of the murder, she gets into a screaming match with Emily. And she screams the words that every teenager has probably thought, but, few say so violently. I hate you. I wish you die.
I wish you die. That is the line that hangs over the entire investigation, isn't it? It gives the police a motive on a silver platter. But think about the psychological weight of that for a second. If Reese is innocent, she has to live the rest of her life knowing her last words to her mother were a wish for her death, a wish that came true hours later. That is a level of survivor's guilt that just destroys people.
Then there's the brother, Wyatt, 14. The
Mm.
parents think he's the golden child. He's an academic genius, plays baseball, gets good grades, the whole package.
But Reese knows the truth. And this is where the book gets into the sociology of the modern suburban teen. Wyatt isn't a good kid. He's just good at not getting caught.
He's a hustler. Reese reveals that he steals credit cards to buy loot boxes and video games. He's into online gambling. And, get this, he's a drug dealer.
A plug, as they say. He's selling Adderall and weed to other kids.
Which is wild for a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that really confused me at first. When the police arrive at the murder scene, after Courtney calls them, they find Wyatt in the house, asleep.
Wait, explain that. How do you sleep through a double homicide in a small cottage?
That's what I thought. But the text gives us the medical explanation. Wyatt had a stuffy nose the night before. Emily, being the caring mother, even in the midst of all that chaos, gave him some pink medicine.
Benadryl. Diphenhydramine.
Exactly. And if you've ever taken a heavy dose of Benadryl, it doesn't just make you sleepy, it knocks you completely out. It's a sedative.
So he was chemically incapacitated. He slept through the screams, whatever the weapon was, the blows, the intruder walking past his door. He wakes up to police officers pointing guns at him. Imagine the trauma of that awakening. You go to sleep with a stuffy nose, and you wake up an orphan with a SWAT team in your face.
It is horrific. And then you have May, the little niece. She's the witness. She's traumatized, wetting the bed, clinging to Courtney. But she holds a key. She tells the police later that she saw Reese with a boy.
And that pivots us to the other timeline, the before. Because while the adults were fighting over maps and jobs, Reese was living in a completely different genre. She was living in a teen romance thriller.
She meets a boy, Daniel. And let's be honest, the description is classic bad boy bait. He's a resort employee. He's got that Timothy Chalamet look-sharp jawline, floppy hair, and a snake tattoo on his arm.
The snake is heavy symbolism, obviously. Danger, deception. But we need to look at this through the lens of what we call the grooming cycle. Because this isn't a romance, it's a targeting operation.
You think so? Right from the start.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the steps. Step 1, target selection. He finds the girl who is isolated, angry, and feels misunderstood by her family. Reese is the perfect victim.
That's true. She's just sitting alone, miserable, hating this vacation.
Step 2, triangulation. He aligns himself with her against her parents. He validates her anger. He makes comments about her family fighting. He says things like, I understand you.
And he says, I'll protect you.
Exactly, I'll protect you. To a vulnerable 17-year-old, that sounds like chivalry. To a forensic psychologist, that sounds like ownership.
Yeah.
He is establishing that the world is unsafe, and he is the only sanctuary.
The environment plays into this, too. The resort isn't nice. It's described as dingy, with rusty merry-go-rounds and taxidermy fish on the walls. Feels really run down. But to Reese, because of Daniel, it becomes this romantic gothic escape.
Until the night of the murder, that's when the mask slips.
Right. Reese sneaks out to meet him. She leaves the front door unlocked, which, by the way, is a massive detail. That unlocked door is likely how the killer got in.
She compromised the security of the fortress to meet the boy.
They meet in the woods. They smoke weed. He teaches her how to inhale. It's intimate. But then, he changes the plan. He promised to take her to the pier to look at the stars. Instead, he takes her deeper into the woods to an old haunted cemetery.
And the atmosphere shifts instantly. This is where Kubica moves from romance to horror. Reese starts describing cold spots. She hears sounds, gnashing teeth, gravel crunching. It's not romantic anymore. It's hostile.
And Daniel gets weird. He leans in close, and he says a line that made the hair on my arm stand up. He says, "You should have known better than to trust a guy like me."
That is a confession disguised as a warning. It raises the ultimate question. Is Daniel the killer? Did he kill the parents to liberate Reese? Or is he a red herring? Is he just a creepy local who likes scaring girls but isn't a murderer?
We leave Reese in the woods with him, terrified, right as the timeline catches up to the murders. It's a brilliant cliffhanger.
Meanwhile, back in the present, the investigation is ramping up. And the police aren't just looking for Daniel, they are looking at the family. Specifically, Courtney's husband, Uncle Elliot.
This guy. Yeah, I don't know what to make of him. He wasn't in the cottage when Courtney found the bodies. He claims he was fishing.
He says he left at 5 a.m. to catch bass. But there are gaping holes in that alibi. Courtney admits she didn't hear him leave, and she's a light sleeper. And neighbors on the lake reported seeing boats, but they weren't fishing. They were taking pictures of the crime scene.
So if Ellie was out there, he wasn't fishing. He was, what, lurking?
Or he was doing something he doesn't want anyone to know about. And then there's the secret conversation. Courtney remembers that the night before, Emily pulled Elliot aside. She asked to speak to him in private the next day.
What could that possibly be about?
Well, we can speculate. Was it about money? Did Emily want to ask for a loan because Nolan was out of work? Or was it something more illicit? Was there an affair? The text doesn't say yet, but Elliot's defensiveness suggests he is hiding something massive.
And while Courtney is doubting her husband, she's also watching the police work. Detective Evans is the lead. He's young, wears a tactical vest, very intense. But he seemed to have tunnel vision. He is zeroing in on Reese.
The patricide narrative is very appealing to law enforcement. It just wraps everything up so neatly. Angry teen, history of conflict. I wish you'd die, and now she's gone. It fits the pattern. They think she snapped, killed them, and ran.
But then, Wyatt, our sleeping beauty who woke up to a nightmare, drops a bombshell. He's sitting there seemingly callous, just playing on his phone while his aunt is falling apart, and suddenly he says, I know where Reese is.
This is where we have to talk about the digital panopticon. Wyatt isn't psychic. He has SnapMap.
For those listeners who might be a bit older or, value their privacy, can you explain the implications of this? Because I know what it is, but the way Wyatt uses it feels weaponized.
SnapMap is a feature on Snapchat where you share your real-time GPS location with your friends. It shows up as a little avatar on a map. For Gen Z, this is standard. They trade privacy for visibility. Being seen is a form of social currency.
It's voluntary surveillance.
Exactly. But Wyatt uses it forensically. He reveals that Reese's avatar is pinging near a waste disposal site in a wooded trail about 5 minutes away. But he also reveals why he tracks her. He blackmails her.
That's right. He tells Courtney that Reese pays him via Venmo to keep her secrets. She paid him to not tell their mom that she lost Mary at the lodge earlier in the day.
It creates a really disturbing picture of their sibling dynamic. It's transactional, he monetizes her mistakes, but in this moment, that toxicity becomes a lifeline.
Courtney wants to run into the woods immediately. Detective Evans tells her to stay put. It's dark, it's dangerous, let the pros handle it. But Courtney, she's not having it. The next morning, she defies orders and joins the search party.
And this section of the book is physically exhausting to read. We need to talk about the terrain. The Northwoods aren't a park. They are dense, boggy, really difficult.
They're walking through spongy ground, crossing bog bridges. It's hot, there are bugs, and the psychological toll. Every time they see a piece of trash or a broken branch, the adrenaline spikes.
And then comes the false alarm. This is such a crucial beat in the narrative. A volunteer yells, "There's something over there." Courtney runs toward it. She sees something wispy, like hair.
She prepares herself. She thinks, this is it. I'm about to see my niece's dead body. She steels herself for the trauma.
But it's not Reese. It's a decomposing animal, a fox or coyote with a detached head.
That imagery is so gruesome, but it serves a purpose. It's a release of tension, but a horrific one. It shows us how close Courtney is to the breaking point. She is literally hallucinating Reese in dead animals.
And while she's out there, she meets a couple, Joanna and Sam, and this introduces a subplot that expands the scope of the mystery significantly.
I remember this. There was a poster in the lodge for a missing girl named Kylie Matthews.
Kylie went missing 5 years ago from this exact same area. She was 11. Joanna and Sam are her parents. They're out searching for Reese because they are stuck in this loop of grief.
Joanna says something that just broke my heart. She talks about baking a red velvet cake every single year for Kylie's birthday. She says, the not knowing is the hardest part.
But look at the implication here. A young girl vanished 5 years ago. Now another girl is missing and her parents are dead. Is there a connection?
You mean like a serial predator?
It's a very strong possibility. Is the resort actually a hunting ground? We know from an earlier scene that the resort is unsafe. Reese found May being led into the adults-only section by some man.
Yes, I forgot about that. The man had his hand on May's shoulder. It was predatory.
So we have a potentially unsafe environment, a history of missing children, and now a double homicide. It raises the stakes from domestic tragedy to monster in the woods.
So the search comes up empty for Reese. But the investigation does find clues, and some of them are incredibly confusing. Let's break down the physical evidence.
The most disturbing clue, for me, is the boy in the cottage.
May confesses to Detective Evans that she had heard a boy in their cottage previously,
Yeah.
before the murders even happened.
This validates that Reese was sneaking Daniel in. But May adds a really chilling detail. She heard Reese crying. She heard Reese say he was hurting her.
Now, we have to parse that phrase, hurting her. Was that physical abuse? Was it, I don't know, rough sexual play? Or was she just scared?
It connects right back to the grooming cycle. Often, the abuser creates a scenario where they are the source of pain and the source of comfort. If Daniel was in the cottage previously, he knows the layout, he knows where the parents sleep, he knows the doors.
Then there's the broken glass.
Ah.
Courtney found broken glass on the porch where Reese slept.
And we know from Reese's perspective that she threw her phone in a fit of rage earlier and broke a lantern. This is important because it confirms the timeline. Reese was volatile and destructive before she left. It supports the theory that the glass wasn't from a break-in, but from an internal explosion of temper.
Speaking of phones, Reese's phone is the holy grail right now. But her digital footprint is disappearing. Courtney checks Reese's Instagram. It's wiped clean. It just says, no posts yet.
That is the most chilling detail to me. A teenage girl does not delete her entire social media history unless she is in extreme distress.
Or unless someone else is doing it for her.
Exactly. This suggests a forensic countermeasure. If the killer has the phone, he might be deleting messages that implicate him. Maybe DMs between Reese and Daniel, maybe photos. It implies the killer is tech-savvy and very conscious of the investigation.
So let's zoom out. What are we looking at here? We have two dead bodies, Emily and Nolan. We have one missing girl, Reese. We have a traumatized witness, Mary. And we have a cast of suspicious characters that fills a bingo card.
We have Daniel, the bad boy, with the grooming tactics. We have Elliot, the defensive uncle with the missing timeline. We have Wyatt, the cold, calculating brother. And we have the phantom serial predator who might have taken Kylie Matthews.
Then we have the locked room aspect. They were in a cottage in the woods. Someone was watching. Someone knew the door was unlocked.
The recurring theme is voyeurism. Courtney felt watched. Reese saw Daniel watching her. The killer didn't just stumble upon them. He was hunting them.
I want to leave you with a final thought, a provocation to mull over. In the text, Reese thinks to herself, girls like me don't get second chances.
It's such a fatalistic worldview for a 17-year-old. It implies she felt trapped long before she went missing. She felt like her badness, her rebellion, her anger had already condemned her.
So listeners, here's the question. Who do you trust? The rebellious teen who wished her parents dead? The grieving husband who went fishing while his family was murdered? Or the helpful local who promised to protect her?
In a story like this, trust is the first casualty. And the scariest thing isn't the woods. It's the people you brought into them.
That is all for this deep dive into It's Not Her. We will be back next time to uncover more secrets. Until then, lock your doors.
Seriously.
And check the windows.
For now.